Well, thanks, guys. I love being on campus. It's actually funny because I'm not even a domer. Also, let me know if there's too much feedback because then I can switch to a mic. Um, so I'm like an honorary domer, I guess. So like I spent so much time in and around the community of Notre Dame that now every time something happens, everyone's like, "Oh, Jada, come on campus." I'm like, "Sure, why not?" And my alma mater actually is Duke. So I went to my undergrad, did my undergrad there. Awesome program, love Duke so much. I actually am like the first person in my family that went to college, first person in my family born in America. Everyone's from Jamaica. And so I arrived to Duke and did civil and environmental engineering. Mostly because of my best friend's mom, who was a freaking rock star. Like she helped build the metro in LA. So I was just like, you're amazing. You have all these different, like diversify. She was an entrepreneur, actually, now that I think about it. So she was an engineer, but then also like owned a ranch and like owned houses and was like working on other projects. So that was, I'd say, probably my main influence. And then once I got into college, learned very quickly that I didn't really like engineering, like going into the career after graduating. So spoke to a bunch of my friends, and one of them, Kenny Osakwe, really interesting guy. He spent most of his career on Wall Street, actually. He was like, "No, Jada, you have a great personality. Like you would love going onto Wall Street. Go to Wall Street." And I did that, went to go work for Bank of America Merrill Lynch, did sales and trading, and absolutely hated it. But the first thing when I walked into it, like you walk in, have you guys, any of you guys been in banking? Yeah. So like the first thing when you walk into the trading floor, like in New York, all you see is just like screens on the whole wall, like the back wall. And then you see all the traders, all the salesmen, and then the traders, of course, have like 6 screens in front of them. And there's just this buzz, like you just hear like phones slamming, people talking. And it's just the energy itself, just like fills you, like it fills you completely. But then you like get to the job and then you're kind of like, this is not really that fun because it's not really that exciting. It's more of just like salespeople. I felt like it was very pigeonholed. You kept doing the same job day in and day out, made great money, very good money, but just not something that I saw myself doing long term. So after that, I took kind of the learnings there and then decided to still stay in banking, but to transition to M&A investment banking. So went to a boutique firm. So I think as someone that, came from the background that I did, it was important for me to go into banking because I was able to develop, one, the amazing skill set. You really push your limits. Like I think I worked 90-hour weeks for 2+ years. And you probably guys hear this a lot. You're drinking from a fire hose. That's like the whole experience of banking. And it's equally as incredible as totally awful. But you come out knowing how to walk the walk, how to talk the talk, how to tell the stories of businesses from when they're nascent until they're getting ready for IPOs, right? So, and then it was really interesting. I actually say this really corny line, and it's between late nights and spreadsheets, I demystified the career of entrepreneur. Because it's very true. Like every day I see entrepreneurs walk in and out the door, right? And I used to look at them like, you know what? You guys are really smart, but it's not like you're Elon Musk smart. You're not like out of reach. I totally could do exactly what you're doing. And it's just a matter of guts. So I started thinking about all my problems, just writing down my problems. Like, okay, well, this thing is like really inefficient for me. This thing is really inefficient for me. And then what I actually came up with was Black woman hair care. I realized, so I don't know if you guys know much about Black women hair care, but I'm a Black woman, as you can see, and my hair costs me a lot of freaking money every year. And what I do is, I do many different styles, braids, weaves, wigs, like everything, mostly to protect my hair underneath, because it takes me probably 5 hours to do my hair if it's my real hair versus doing 5 minutes when I have like a weave. And my boyfriend can tell you, because it's just like, he sees me wake up and he sees me in the bathroom working on my hair for many hours. So what I did is I came up with a marketplace that would allow Black women to find stylists, but also find products. because it's such a fragmented market. I don't know if you know anything about it, but what happens is the hair leaves India from ceremonial services, like processes. So women go to churches, they shave their head because it's part of their religion. That hair gets cleaned, washed, then sent to China. China then manufactures it and sews it together. Then it gets sent to Korea, and then from Korea it gets packaged, and then it gets sent to the States. And it's all these little baby sellers. So I was like, how can I connect all of this and this fragmented market? Started there, absolutely loved the problem, and was able to create a first product, kind of hired my first like CTO, like got this experience of, working with engineers, understanding that even though I was a civil engineer, we didn't speak the same language. So understanding like how to run a team and how to like project manage, actually. I quickly realized that although I was very passionate about the problem, it didn't keep me like enthralled, mostly because it lacked this like, now I know this impact layer. Like for me, I needed impact. The only thing that fires me up is a company that's going to deliver impact. And it must be because of my background, a lot of my family, all of the problems that I've now worked on and I've had success with are problems that my family has actually faced, that was close to home, that I experienced. And so I stopped working on Groomed, which is what it was called. And it was funny. So I reached out to Howie Ree, who's like the startup god at Duke, I call him. Sent him an email, was like, hey, Howie, I've been working on this, but like, I think I would like something that's a little more, that'll tickle my investment banking brain a little bit more. And he referred me to Maria and Dustin, and spoke to Dustin, actually held him off for like probably a month or so. Didn't speak to him because I was trying to figure out what to do with Groom, and spoke to Maria and Dustin, or really just Dustin. And after this, it's so wild because after that first conversation, I was like, you know what? I don't know where South Bend is, but I think I'm gonna move there. Like, I think that's gonna happen. And sure enough, 3 weeks later, I packed up and moved to South Bend. Because you guys know about Dustin and Maria, correct? So then they did, and Vonti has actually evolved a lot over the past several years. But before, I was a guinea pig, always. I love being a guinea pig because then I can just create the program or create the experience just as I want it. So I left, came here, and that program then was, they kind of just immersed you into the South Bend community, gave you all the connections that you needed. And that first week, we kind of like did a tour around South Bend, meeting a bunch of the community leaders. And I kept hearing this problem. The problem that which you guys have probably seen, there's really freaking cheap houses here, like really cheap houses. And some of them are gorgeous, like Victorian age, just like well-built, great wood, molding, gorgeous. But what you will find is that it's mostly filled with renters, which for me just didn't make sense. As someone coming from LA, it's obvious why people don't buy houses because it's freaking expensive. But like here, I was like, this makes no sense. It's mostly renters. It's mostly like people that, and they're renting for 9 years, 10 years, like forever, basically. So it was like, what's the gap? And the gap was that there are no mortgages available for $100,000 or less mortgage for houses. So it's really a kink in the system from post-financial crisis. It's from Dodd-Frank, where you end up having, for the bank, it costs the same amount for them to originate a $50,000 mortgage as it does to originate a $500,000 mortgage. So obviously, and they're commission-based. So obviously, the incentive is to originate that $500,000 mortgage, because it's likely going to take a lot more work to get the family that's likely a first-time homeowner and looking to work through this mortgage process a lot more time. So what we designed was a friendly rent to own, which is typically seen as very predatory. But we took all the learnings from that, I actually spent a lot of time with leaders. I think we spoke to probably over like 200 people that were kind of like had some type of tentacle on this problem. And then we created what ended up being Hurry Home. And so as my, I guess, real startup, I raised money, and I don't know if you guys know this stat, but it's only, as of March 2021, only 22 Black women have raised more than $1 million from venture capital. which is wild, wild. And I got very close on my first time, very close, and probably surpassing on this company I'm working on now. But so I didn't know that stat, but I went really hard, went out raising money. And definitely the community of South Bend really helped, really helped. I don't, you guys, so we got accepted into Techstars in Chicago. So went through that whole accelerator program, which I absolutely loved, amazing network. Like actually going to go, like two of my Techstar classmates are investors in my new company. Really tight-knit network. And you really need that, I think, or I really needed it, mostly to increase my startup network. Like I had a good banking network, but I didn't have a good like startup investor, angel investor network, or even mentor network. So I joined Techstars. We actually had Mayor Pete invest in Hurry Home. We had Mayor Pete give my like introduction for our Techstars demo day, which was incredible because he was running for president at the time. So it was kind of odd. People kind of saw our demo day presentation like, no, that's not Mayor Pete. But it was awesome. And then after that, went on to take 500 meetings from investors. 500, like 500 meetings. It's so exhausting. And you have to be on. Like you have to be, it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna hog in this meeting and say, hey guys, here's my pitch deck, just read through it. No, it's like, yeah, this is my business. You're gonna love it. This is the story. This is the vision. Like we're gonna win. This is my team. You have to invest or not. Like you're on. And that's for like 8 hours a day. And then most of those meetings, so I think I had 13 of those investors invested. 13 out of 500 investors invested, which is crazy. One learning from that is lean into the people that believe in you and believe in your mission, and lean out from the ones that don't. And just quickly get to that realization as quick as you can. Because you honestly, who has time for 500 meetings? It's a lot of time. And your business is likely losing money every day because you're paying employees, you're paying for services, you're paying for everything, right, to run a company. But I'd still say that was pretty successful. I mean, first-time entrepreneur that was raising money with a product, social impact focused, as a Black woman. We did pretty damn well, I'd say, and very proud of it. So we went out to build, and I was able to actually got pretty amazing recognition post that. I've sat down with Melinda Gates, Khosla, these people who now CZI, like, Chan Zuckerberg, who love the product that we've created. And I've now become an expert in small dollar houses and affordable housing and wealth creation. So it's really been amazing. But then the pandemic hit, and the total housing market just completely flipped. There's one, we have our main customer that job insecurity, they don't want to leave their houses. They don't want to think about moving. All the actual supply of housing kind of paused. I mean, you guys know the whole world was shut down. And as the world shut down, it doesn't mean that, we get to stop paying employees. So money is still running out of the bank account. And John and I, so my co-founder, we had to make the really, really tough decision. Like we looked at ourselves about 8 months into the pandemic after really turning wheels to no avail. And we looked at ourselves and said, do we truly believe that we can make this company a billion-dollar company? And I mean, the answer to that for me was, I don't know. Which is tough. And I can speak for myself. I spent probably the next 6 months, like in a depression that I didn't really realize was a depression. Mostly because I took up all these new hobbies to fill out the space, so I wouldn't have to focus on what was happening with the company. But it was because I think for me, a lot of my identity was wrapped up in Jada, the entrepreneur, Jada, the impact entrepreneur, Jada the first. I love being the first. So Jada the first. And it was just, I felt like I failed. And probably for the first time in my life, I felt like I failed. Like I failed. I went out there, I raised all this money, and now I have to go back and tell these investors that I'm going to quit, that I'm going to walk away. So there's a lot of learnings from Hurry Home that I'm actually still really trying to process and distill. And it's really hard to say like what the main learning is, but I will say the one thing I have taken from that experience is being an entrepreneur, a startup founder, is equally the best and the worst job in the world. And I have zero desire to do anything else. So I will continue to build until I succeed. And my definition of success is a freaking $1 billion company. Not because of the value, but because of the impact that I think I'll be able to provide to people. And then of course, the impact that me as Jada, being the entrepreneur that fills this body, will be able to also provide to the community that I hope to continue to support. So on to my next adventure. I was looking for so many other things to do. Again, writing down problems that I came across. I love fintech. Probably because of banking, but I love it. So, and I kind of feel a little old because now crypto's coming in, and I used to like this world of old fintech guys, which I'm kind of in, and then you see the world of like the new fintech guys who like the crypto, and you're like, I got to keep up. But I love fintech. So I started looking at impact again. So fintech and impact, those are my two big buckets. I started looking at like Snap EBT, like can I do a HelloFresh type service for Snap EBT families? No frills, so a little different. And then I started looking at like small dollar loans, started looking at like a bunch of different problems in fintech. And one problem that kind of stuck out with me was kind of during all the George Floyd stuff. Happenings. And I kept hearing all these pledges. It was like, we pledge Lululemon or whatever. We pledge to be more inclusive. All these D&I pledges. But I felt that I had no way to tell, to keep companies accountable. It's like, there's no way out there for us to keep companies accountable. So like, how can we do that? How can I use technology to facilitate that? And then I actually spoke to Tim Connors, which I'm sure you guys actually know pretty well. And if you don't yet, then you'll meet him. And Tim Connors was working on something similar, but from the more general kind of ESG space. And from that, I decided, well, I took a few things. I knew this stat about Black women raising money. And I was like, you know what, the next time I start a company, I'm probably going to align myself with a venture capitalist, with an old white man, and try to get him on my team so that he can, and with great track record, so that it's easy for me to lend on his name. Even though I think I've gotten to the point where I'm a well-known entrepreneur, and it's easy to tell my story now. But it was still great to be able to lean on someone that has this deep experience in Silicon Valley, really just to make my fundraising a lot smoother. And so I aligned myself with Tim Connors and decided to go the venture studio route, which I can kind of dive into venture studio, what that means, what that doesn't mean, and why I end up choosing that path, if you guys want me to. And I started Ethically, which is a company that allows for you as a consumer to find companies to use your dollar to support companies that you care about, that are aligned with your values. But I think the real game changer and why I love Ethically is because, again, another line. So lifestyle change and systemic change are two sides of the same coin. So I'm trying to use Ethically to gather the power of the collective, purchasing power of the collective, to tell these brands and these companies that this is what the consumer wants, and then affect systemic change. So that's the big vision for Ethically. And I'm in the middle of raising for that. And it's actually been it's been crazy. It's been stressful. I think I was up last night probably until 1:30 sending emails. But it's wild how easy it's been to raise like the first 10, 20%. And I actually kind of foresee it being so last time 500 meetings, 13 investors. It took me about 6 months. I don't want to, it's not over until the money's in the bank. That's one rule I took from Techstars. But I think it could be over in like 2 months, which would be amazing, because now that means I get to go back to building a company that I love and building a team and like doing exactly what I love. Like I've designed my life in a way, in my way, honestly, in my way. And yeah, I'm just really excited to share with you guys. But you guys caught me at a really interesting time. So I'm here, honestly, meeting investors as well. So I spent some tailgating time networking, and I'll run to Chicago and do some more meetings and run back here and kind of do that. But thanks, guys. That's it. I'm happy to take any questions or dive in deeper wherever you want. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So some of these investors also ended up being my friends' fathers, these are really close relationships. That took me to go through that process of like getting to the point of saying, I'm walking away from Hurry Home. Like I had to say that to myself. I'm walking away from Hurry Home, because if I don't walk away from Hurry Home, I suffer. And like I suffer because there's opportunity cost. Like for me to stay in a company that I don't believe is going to be $1 billion in 7 years or less, there's an opportunity cost, right? And so once I decided that, I then slowly formulated emails, slowly formulated texts, and just like got the courage to send them. And you'd be surprised at how supportive everyone was. I have one difficult angel groups. I really hate angel groups. They're the worst. If you don't need to go to angel groups, please stay away from them. They're the worst. But the rest have been so supportive, so supportive. Or they've said, you know what, Jada, like you've done your best. You've done your best. No one knew a pandemic was coming. And then still, you guys hit up against walls and continued hitting walls. So it's once it started, it was a lot easier, but it took a lot to get to the place of saying or setting up conversations. Because in my head, I built up, maybe the worst cases, they would yell at me or they would say like all these things. But ultimately, these people know what they're doing when they invest in startups, or that's something that you should qualify, is that they know what they're investing in an early stage startup where 95% or more fail. But yeah, it's tough, but once you do it once, I think you can do it again. So I actually do have one investor transferring over or investing again and ethically. And that's the real test. If you can get investors to invest in you again and again and again, you've done something right. Yes, I'll take you in gray sweater. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually not educating, right at this stage, we're not educating the consumer on why it's important. We're going after the consumers that know this is important, that already believe in this. But how we're reaching them is actually through I say micro-influencers, but they're not really influencers. They have less than 5,000 followers. They're like, you, me, whatever. But they're people that have been vocal about a specific wedge within ESG. So ESG being environmental, social responsibility, and governance. It's really the financial way of talking about impact. That's not financial impact. So we're going after people that are like, hey, I hate plastic pollution, and their whole Instagram is about them mitigating plastic pollution. And you say, hey, this product helps you find companies that are plastic free. And then they're excited about it because that's their whole life. So we're going after a very specific wedge within the whole world of ESG.
I'm just wondering what the setup is for the actual platform. Is it a website or is it an app? And then a follow-up to that is what are the web revenue streams?
Yeah, so it's a browser extension. It's a Chrome extension and TextBot. So I don't know about you guys, but my shopping is between different mediums. So it's phone, sometimes I discover things, and then I'll maybe pick it up on my browser. So right now it's mostly a browser extension, but we're dipping our toes in SMS land. Revenue stream is whenever someone selects an alternative. So the way we present it is you're on Amazon, on the product listing, you'll see an ethically grade, and then you can dive into that if you want, but then you'll also see alternatives that are more sustainable. And then you can click the alternative within the product listing, and you'll get taken to that product listing or to the website, depending on which company it is. And every time someone clicks that, we make money. Yes. That's the hard part. And that's the magic. So yes, sometimes it's between retailers. So Amazon to Target, you can, Target's better than Amazon, especially if you saw the news today about how they're leaking all your data or not doing anything to secure your data. We will tell you, you can find this product at Target, or which I think is better is we tell you just a more sustainable product that's not on Amazon. Do you have another part of that question? Oh, so the other part is taxonomy. So retailers don't want you to compare across retailers. But what we've done is, so each time someone goes to a product listing, we save the brand name, the product name, and the taxonomy. So how it's labeled within the system of that retailer. And then, so every time a user uses it, the system gets better at being able to recognize what the person is looking at, and then how to match alternatives. So really, we're lending on the taxonomies of the retailers in order to do this. Yes. I mean, I think you just have to trust in yourself. That's it sounds silly, but that's really it. Because I think, yeah, I've never built a company before, really built a company before Hurry Home. But I knew that we've tried everything that mentors told us, that I use as my own gut instinct. And by the time we got to this decision of, yes, we should close down, I had my community of people that I was talking to, or that were advising me and telling me, I actually have one investor who I'll see tomorrow. And he was like, you know what, Jada, it was an experiment. You ran a great experiment. You were successful. Cool, move on. He was that dry, just done. And for me, I was like, this is my baby. Everything's wrapped up in this. What do you mean it was an experiment and just leave it? So honestly, a lot of people were telling me to walk away. And then eventually I came to that decision when I was ready to walk away. There was a hand back there, yeah.
Very much. I watch your pitch.
Awesome.
I love.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Actually,
Oh, awesome.
I appreciate it. So, well, we're talking about 13 investor from 500. And
Yeah.
sometimes we want like easy answers. I was telling my friends, that, for example, for job application, you have to send like 100 applications for one interview.
Mhm.
And the question was, is it worth it? So can you please share your mindset of your hard work and how to get your mindset of hard work and those kind of uh, facts that you have
Yeah.
to work a lot to 1%.
Totally. Totally. I mean, the way I think about it is everything is a funnel. Like, and if you guys, anyone works in sales or had work in sales, no. But yeah, everything's a funnel. So you have to just keep loading the funnel and eventually people will trickle down at the bottom. And but every time people are dropping off at each step because, there's friction or, they're not on your team. Like there's so many other reasons that people are going to fall off, but only a small percentage will make it to the bottom of the funnel. And that doesn't mean that, you didn't do a good job. It doesn't mean that, product is not worth it. That's just the nature of everything. Everything, people, you're going to find people that you're casting a wide net and sometimes you just get trash. So for me, it was, I guess how I think about it is yes, I had 500 meetings. Yes, I hope I never have to do that again. But it made me a better entrepreneur because each of those meetings, none of them were the same. So I had to understand how to take questions, how to take criticism, how to hear that your baby is ugly, or really figure out, what are they asking? Like, what do they want to know? So honestly, it just made me a really good entrepreneur. So I think it's worth it. 100% it's worth it. And again, I said I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, I don't see myself doing anything else. Like, I'm going to build for the rest of my life. And that's it. Yes.
Thank you so much. How did you build your database with all the products that are made? And then they say probably maybe you like which market and then you get information ready website, but then how do you put that the details that you want because that's the whole point of the business. And then the other question is about they're like an algorithm that you build to cross-check products and then
Yeah. So, I mean, each retailer, they have different product listings, right? And Amazon is by far the messiest of all of them because everyone can kind of it's like a free for all, right? You create your product listing as the seller. So they're the most difficult to pull the information from, but we know that the brand name is usually in one section of the page. We know that the category tree is usually, or at least part of the category tree is usually on the page somewhere. And we know, those are the two main things that we need in order to pull up a grade for that brand and pull alternatives. And we have to do that for every retailer, really. So Amazon gets the same treatment. And then Target, we have to think about where is their brand name. Target has a really clean, very, very clean product listing. So you can, exactly where brand name is, exactly where category tree is. But you're right. So for these big box retailers, it's all very we had to go in and figure out how we're going to adapt a bit in order to be able to compare across platforms. So that does mean if Target or Amazon decides to change something, tweak something slightly, we may have to go back in and tweak something slightly as well. So yeah, you had another question. I can't remember. I mean, we've been building ethically for about 4 months now. And most of that's been on making this. So I say ethically is one-click conscious spending. And that's what I've been focused on is how do I make this as frictionless as possible? Like, how do I make conscious spending as easy as unconscious spending? And so that process is can I go from product listing on Amazon to product listing of the alternative? That's kind of what we're getting to. So that's been the last 3 months that we've been building that. And it's been tough. It's been tough. I'll take you in the right behind you. Mhm. Yeah, so the first question was, how do I explain how the product is built? Oh, I mean, I don't know if I have a good answer for that, but I mean, defining the labor, I guess how we define it is every week we have a planning meeting and we figure out, we have like a Trello board and we just like figure out like, this is what we want to get. We know that end goal is one-click conscious spending. And we know that this week we can make progress on this little piece within it, but we're not really we're defining it as we go and as users dictate. So each week I take user feedback calls. And if I get enough calls where users saying, you know what, I kind of like alternatives to look this way, or like, this is not as intuitive as I'd like, as I'd imagine, then we would probably switch gears to doing that, because ultimately our goal is to get users to click alternatives. So it's very fluid on how we think about kind of like product roadmap, but with the goal in mind, which is good alternatives and changing consumer behavior. That's the goal. So everything, as long as you keep that kind of like North Star in mind, then everything else can change, because you already know where you're always going to get your end goal. Your second question was, so this is interesting. So I guess how we've thought about it, this is a recent change from user feedback, is a lot of companies out there. So ESG really came from finance. So a lot of like ESG funds, like they use this data from the really big guys in order to qualify them as ESG. So as companies that are more, it's not green, but more, really it's a risk assessment. But so we've taken some of that data, but because that data is more financial in nature, it's not necessarily a good indicator of like consumer sentiment or consumer, like it doesn't really help you as a consumer figure out which company are doing better, because it's just very broad and it's mostly focused on risk. So what we're doing now is actually looking to kind of like what Netflix does. Did you like that show? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And this binary decision forces you to like decide, is this an environmentally ethical company? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And so we're using this kind of community-based score, backing it up with research from like Benefit Corp, B Corp, Cradle to Cradle, a bunch of different certifications and I guess qualifications that help us determine, is this company actually really doing, like not using plastic or not using slave labor or being transparent. But in short, community score backed up by research. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah, so this one, it's a huge problem. On the consumer side, you have $150 billion going into just sustainably marketed products last year, spending on sustainably marketed products last year. The other side of this was when I was talking to Colgate or talking to Clorox and saying, talking to their CSOs, their chief sustainability officers. And they're like, Jada, I don't know what consumers want. You're like, you're billions of dollars, value as a company worldwide, and you don't know what consumers want as it pertains to sustainability. So it was very clear that there's a missing link, right? Because consumers are saying, oh, I care about plastic pollution, I care about D&I, but then companies on the other side are not getting that. They're not like, they're using surveys, they're using consultants, they're not getting it from the consumer. So they're also not getting it in a language that they can understand and that's actionable. So I saw there's two big parts of this problem and both customers will probably pay, but really I want the brands to pay. And I can affect change because now these brands really want to find new loyal customers. So they're willing to make the changes. They have the budget to make the changes. They just don't know where to invest to keep their customers, or they don't know how to keep up with consumer needs. So yeah, I looked at it from the brands. I looked at these big brands that were honestly looking for where to go.
So it sounds very similar in a way to that's other products.
That's my comp usually. So on my deck, I have like my competition slide is where we fit 2 columns, honey, ethically, honey, $4 billion acquisition. Ethically, definitely gonna get there.
I'm just curious on what's stopping honey from doing something similar like this and identifying that, forward. So I'm just curious on what modes you built around your company to ensure that you are kind of, you learn about a promotion strategy, but you're making the competition.
Yeah, so I think we actually have 2 very different customers, right? So the people that are looking for discounts are likely not the people buying, or at least the first adopting customers that are buying ethical, buying sustainable, because these products are actually more expensive, or likely more expensive, and like at least 10%. And the other thing is the technology. I think it's this taxonomy we're building, this like whole world of alternatives, this kind of like community score, which really embeds a lot of trust into the product and into like how our transparency and our position as this intermediary between consumer and company. Yeah. Any more? Yep. Yeah, Venture Studio. So I mostly chose Venture Studio because I didn't want to have 500 meetings. That's really what it was. And I knew that, yeah, so I chose a Venture Studio that had an investor that was named top 100 investors in Silicon Valley last year. So having that person that believes in me on my team slide definitely helps a lot. And I knew working directly, I wanted to become a badass entrepreneur. That's simple. So I knew working directly under a VC would push me to my limits. So I'm a bit of a masochist. I mean, I went through banking, quite obvious. But now again, I'm pushing myself to just be a great entrepreneur. And because oftentimes I'm conflicted because I have the VC, pushing me about increasing spend on marketing and like unit economics, and then I'm on the other side saying, the product isn't like, we need more on the product side. We need more value. We need to push. We need to build longer before we start blowing money on marketing. So I'm constantly, kind of at odds, and I've been able to now develop the tools and the vernacular as well on how to navigate these conversations and really, I guess, articulate my vision and how, why that way is probably not the way that I think we should go, which has been tough, but he can tell you as well, it's tough. I'm very stressed a lot, but it's great. It's great. It's great.
Jay, question.
Yeah.
So I know we met John.
Yep.
Can you talk a little about the co-founder process? Both, like how you met, how you decided this was something you both wanted to do, and how you managed that. And then obviously when you guys hit the wall with the pandemic, those kind of conversations that you had to have with the co-founder.
Yeah.
And what's John?
Yeah. The co-founder relationship is tough, very tough. So they always say this, your co-founder is like, you're married. It's a marriage. So John will always be my co-founder. Like it's because like now you say it's like, oh, who's John? Oh yeah, he's my co-founder. And it's like, well, or he was my co-founder, but he'll always have that label. And I'll be completely transparent. Like I'll go so far as to say like, we're not really friends, but we're co-founders. And we've gone through co-founder therapy. Like it got hard. It got really hard because I met John through Invanti and he's a great character. Like he keeps everything kind of light. But I guess I didn't, as we were studying this problem together, we were just studying it and we were enjoying it and we were just learning and like taking all these things in. And then I remember it was funny because I was actually coming back from holidays. Like I think I was coming back from Cuba. So I had no like internet for a while. And then we had received, when I landed back in South Bend, we had received emails from the city of South Bend saying, hey, that presentation was great. We really want to figure out how we can fund you guys to like get this project going. And at that moment, I realized John now became my co-founder. And that was actually a really hard pill for me to swallow. Because I didn't really, maybe I just wasn't really paying attention. Like I was a bit naive, but I just didn't realize that he would become my co-founder. Because I never really thought that far. And so when that time came, I was a little pissy about it because it's like, I didn't get to make this choice. I didn't get to like really think about the person I'm getting into a marriage with. I mean, imagine you getting into a marriage with someone like you like get along with, but you don't really know. And it's like that show Married at First Sight, which is kind of wild. And so we end up, I remember Dustin telling me like, it's fine, Jada, like you just have to figure out your working relationship. And at the time, because I loved the problem and I loved building, and because I've already invested like 6 months of my life into building this, and we're like right at the cusp of getting really great validation that actually would end up getting us into Techstars. Or I lied, my connections got me into Techstars probably, but the business as well. But I said, yeah, and we ended up being co-founders and we figured out a working relationship. I obviously became the boss and became the decision maker on everything. And John was really good at his job. Like he was really good at advocating for our residents, making sure I didn't go too far in banker world because I spent most of my time talking to real estate funds. Like that was what I did. I talked to real estate funds. I talked to real estate investors. I talked to bankers. These are like, I was in that world. That was my world. And it's quite easy because I was dancing on two lines, right? I'm dancing on achieving really good yield for these investors, but then also making sure that we're maintaining an affordable product for the actual residents. And he would often bring me back and say, Jada, that sounds weird. Come back this way, which was great because I needed that. Because once you get going, you get going. And so he was really good for that. But then I also realized he probably will never be a founder again. Probably never. He's now in business school. He's at MIT. And because I think it's a stressful job. It's a very stressful job. I mean, there's times when like we didn't take pay for like a month because we ran out of money. And I think like for him, for me, I get to a problem and it's like, we're going to work through it. I'm going to figure it out. We're going to do it. And like for him, he's like, oh crap, we're in a problem. Like, so it was hard for him to like manage the ups and downs. So now, yeah, with ethically, I have been a little more cautious with co-founder but luckily over time, I've met a lot of founders and I've met a lot of people that are really good at what they do and are looking to make the jump. So it's not like I'm at a loss or at a lack for any people to work with. So with this one, I actually met someone through the venture studio. We've just been working together, like no commitments, just working together. And so like last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, we were like, you know what, we know each other really well over Zoom, but now let's like go hang out. So we like went to Yosemite and spent like 2 days hiking, and I really freaking like him. He's great as a person and as an amazing like veteran and now self-made builder. And so he'll like, I'll probably say, you know what, Merrick, like, well, I mean, so December, or for New Year's, we're going to be spending time together. So that's the conversation we'll probably have of like, what do you need to be a co-founder? Because I'd love to build with him. Because I think we're actually a better balance of skill set that's really conducive to building a really big company, and then having him build his team, having me build out my team. So yeah.
So one other quick question.
Yep.
So working with Tim, so
Yeah.
what, if you had to, maybe you can, are there one or two sort of real nuggets when you started working with Tim and you're, building your second company? What were some of those early takeaways you got from someone who's experienced in the valley? Right away, where it just sort of hit you and said, "Wow, if I'd had this back, let's bring home, maybe a little different." Maybe not to the point of the pandemic, but yeah, a couple of teachings maybe that picked up early on.
Yeah, I mean, so Tim is really focused on, like, you guys will get this immediately if you haven't already. He is like so focused on unit economics, very focused on unit economics. So I think at this stage, I normally probably wouldn't have been focused on unit economics. It is very helpful to have that. I think what I've gotten out of that that's more useful for me is how to think about partnerships so as to keep your unit economics profitable. So he's been really helpful in like getting pretty creative on the brand side. Like how do we partner with brands? How do we talk to brands? How do we like sell to brands ethically as a product today and ethically as a product tomorrow? That's been the most helpful, because like now I'm talking to Tom's of Maine, and Tom's of Maine is like probably going to help us build out like what we need to sell to them, which is great. And that's like mostly from hearing how he, kind of teases out the problems from these companies and then formulates into a product that they want to purchase. That's probably the big one, I'd say. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I hope I didn't bore you too much.
Thank you.
Oh, also, you feel free to reach out if you guys want anything, need anything. I'm happy to talk, happy to honestly for anything.
Where can we download the extension?
I can, if you Google like ethically extension, it should come up. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way. I mean, I can send David like my information and you guys can have it. And if you want it, or LinkedIn, whatever it is, I'm happy to pass it along.